Good afternoon, everybody. We're here for the Tuesday, May 19th edition of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Once again, we're doing it virtually with the current circumstances. This is our second virtual meeting, I believe. And what we're going to be doing next is to go over the rules of engagement. You can go to the next slide, please. All right, rules of engagement. You can see on the screen. I'm not going to read them all because we can all read. There are no action items on this agenda, so there's no item that requires a resolution ahead of time. If there are any resolutions that happen to be passed through the meeting, because one of the reasons why we want to have the cameras and the names is so we can keep track of who's saying yay or nay and so forth. So therefore, when we're doing the votes, if we're doing any votes, I will call your name and you have to respond and see you physically saying yay or nay. During the meeting, everybody's going to be on mute so that there's not a lot of crosstalk and or interference. During public comment, Ivan's going to unmute the individuals so they can make their comments during the public comment section, and then the same thing for the member reports. When that person is talking, they'll be unmuted. During the presentation, we won't take questions during the presentation. We'll wait till the presentation are over. Each presentation, at the end of each presentation, will be a 5-minute question and answer session. It's best to have it done that way in this format. As if we're all together in a room, that'd be one thing, but we're not in the same room, so it's very hard to just have questions flying back and forth. So it's best to leave those to the end of each presentation. All right, so go ahead to the next slide, Ivan. All right, so we have the agenda. So now I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Time of the meeting is 5:33 p.m. All right, and I'm going to hand over control now to Colin.
All right, thank you all for coming to the May 19th BPAC meeting. I appreciate you taking the time to participate. Let's go to the approval of the agenda. Is everyone had a chance to review, and is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Actually, sorry, Colin.
Move. Yes.
One quick. Let's do a roll call.
Okay.
First, I forgot about that. So my apologies, Colin. All right. So first we have Colin. You're here.
Here.
All right, so when I call your name, just say here. Vice Chairperson Mike Fleming.
Here.
Okay.
Here.
Francisco Ravelez. Remember, I can only see five. I may not see you on the screen, so that's why you have to make sure you say something also. Edgar Ayala. I know you're on, unmute your phone, or I think Edgar, if this, I see you here, so, but I'll, in the interest of time, I'll move on, but you need to unmute when so I can hear you. Sabine Deluge.
Here.
Charles Fisher. Hank Sanchez-Resnick.
Here.
Eric Tolberg. I just spoke to Eric about an hour ago. Hopefully he'll come in. So we have everybody except for we're 2 people, so we have seven in attendance. All right, back to you, Colin.
You didn't call me in the role, but Brett Bevo is here.
All right, well, I didn't? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I did. Brett, well, I counted you for 7, so my mistake. All right, back to you, Colin.
And Eric Tolberg is in the meeting and the attendees. He might not have his microphone on.
Okay, I didn't see his name on the scroll.
All right, so an approval of the agenda. Was there a motion? I think Mike had it. All right. Motion, any second? All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Aye. All right. And that was unanimous. So approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from April's meeting? And if there are any comments prior to moving forward? Eric, I'm listening for you.
All right, with no comments, then I have one quick comment, Chairman. I made
Yes.
I made a typo on the member attendance for. I have Sabrina again as a vice chair. For some reason, I keep forgetting to take her name off, so I'm going to correct that to having Mike Fleming. But that's the only correction.
All right, perfect. As mentioned, is there a motion? Mike, all right. All in favor? Or second, anyone? Want to second the agenda?
I'll
All
second.
What's a
right.
second?
Brett had his hand up first. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now we can get to the nitty gritty. Public comments. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak? If so, I believe they will unmute your microphone.
We do have one public comment. This is Ivan Jimenez from Daniel Fleming. I'm helping out the TBL with collecting the public comments. I, however, do not have access to this individual's voice because they haven't connected. So I sent a audio pin and hopefully that works. I'm trying to resolve their technical difficulties right now. I do have another person with a public comment, and I'm going to unmute their microphones now. Please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Gomez. And I did send my comments over to an email that was provided prior to this email, but I would like to ask a couple of questions in reference to the incorporated area that I live in.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I live
Sorry.
close to the Miami-Dade North Campus. And in this area, I've called and reported a couple of times that we're having issues with pedestrians walking across. It seems that the traffic lights have been placed on 103rd and 27, where the traffic heading towards west through the Hialeah area, if they turn into going back north into 27th Avenue, the pedestrians are not able to cross over. So there has to be either a study or something that has to be done in this area. We're getting a lot more people who are buying out these homes, and they're putting in a multi-unit. So now they're causing more renters to come in this area, which they take public transportation. So they've moved the buses, they've moved a couple of things. It's higher foot traffic, pedestrians, bicyclists, but it's much more dangerous. We have had so many accidents on 28th Avenue and 106 where my neighbors and we've always have to come out and report to the ambulance the people who have crashed into the same pole. I've reported this and nothing has been done. And unfortunately, we've also had children from our local high school, from Turner Tech, who rode their bicycle from Turner Tech 2 years ago, who was killed by a car going into the Hialeah area because of speeding. So we're having a lot of issues here, in particular where the children for the Miami-Dade Community College go across this and go across to the McDonald's because we're also a food desert, and we don't have a lot of sidewalks in this neighborhood that really we need assistance. And I don't know who else to turn to, and I'm glad that this was virtual, that I was actually able to finally communicate with you all.
All right, thank
Okay,
you. That is very helpful. We do have Tiffany Gerke from the DOT. I believe Northwest 27th Avenue is a state road. If there are a lot of incidents that are requiring ambulances and a lot of accidents.
I don't have that data in front of me right now, but is it in particular the intersection of 103rd and 27 that's of concern, or is it? I'm just wanting to pinpoint, so I send an email to we have a bike ped safety specialist and a team that work on safety issues. So when I relay this information to them, it'd be nice if we have a general area or a specific area if possible that I can give them information so they can go out and do a study on that.
Okay, yes, so it is.
Ms. Gomez.
Oh, sorry,
Ms. Gomez. No problem. I'm in receipt of your email that you sent earlier, so I'm going to forward that over to the various departments, and then we'll best address your comments, and then we'll get back with you either via email or phone number, which is on your email.
Okay, perfect. And to answer that question, yes, it's 103rd and 27th, and then 103rd, 28th. Even our own home where I live, which is on 28th and 105th Street, and also my neighbor, we had various cars come in through, because I'm the corner house, various cars crash into our fence. And just recently, a young man, a couple of months ago, crashed into the side of our house, rocking it. So it's definitely something that we need help with. I can show you videos. I mean, my sons and I, we take public transportation, a Metro Rail. So we know that students from New World School of the Arts, Mass Academy, we want to go out walking. We want to go bicycling. We want to do these things. In fact, I've seen a lot of kids now that we've been in quarantine go outside, but we normally don't because of the high traffic. Even in my own street, there's a Johnny's Auto Parts that has caused congestion, and then all of a sudden a towing company has moved into a home. So this is a free-for-all. I'm going to put my business, sort of Texas, whatever it is that I'm going to do, and no one is doing anything. And I think that this is just ridiculous. It's to the point where my neighbor and I, said maybe we should start a crime watch, or I don't know what else we can do, but definitely we have to take some measures here in this area. So that would be 28th and 103rd, 27th and 103rd, but you can go and look at all of the different momentums, I guess, that they've put for the people that have died in front of that automobile car lot.
So I'll have that. I'm gonna, if we can get your email address, I'm gonna send you an email so we can provide, so you can provide any of the footage you have or pictures. But I will send the information of the safety concerns. Is it specifically with, is it car with peds or bikes, or is it any and all above? It sounds like it's definitely cars, like cars with, I don't know, you said they were running into signs and running into buildings.
People.
But also people.
Absolutely, and that is, yes, and that is one of the most alarming thing, is that we have an older population that lives in these older homes. And so a older gentleman, an African-American man, was crossing the street, and I was coming from the college back home. And when he was crossing the street, he was on his, taking his time, because obviously we don't have a traffic light in the area coming into our community. There is a traffic light, but it's in front of, I don't know, I want to say 2 businesses down, which make no sense. Regardless, this man was going across the street, and I literally had to put my car in a vertical kind of way, get out and help him cross the street, because the cars on 27th Avenue are going so fast that I don't understand how no one's come out to research this if the accidents are there in the data unless they haven't been keeping up data. So we have, you know, a mixed mash of population here, but more than anything, I'm concerned about the children in this area. I'm concerned about the elderly population, that they're trying to get the public transportation. They also ride bicycles, but I'm concerned that they're going to get hit. In fact, someone 2 months ago, before we went into quarantine, or before that, I'm sorry, they got hit trying to get the bus from 27th, the bus 27th, to get to the Hialeah bus. And that's another problem with the Hialeah bus. They closed Hialeah down for public transportation, I believe at 8 or 9 o'clock. And so people, you know, have to rush to try to get the last buses to get into the Hialeah because they closed it off. We don't have trolleys like they do in Coral Way, so that they don't come in and out of this community. So before I go on a tangent, I think that, you know, somebody needs to come out here and meet with us and speak, because this is atrocious. It's just like more kids, more people are waiting to die, and we're going to be the victims.
All right, Ms. Gomez?
Yeah.
I don't want you to give your email out on having it be broadcast on YouTube afterwards. So I have your email address, and I mentioned I'll send that. I'll forward your information to Tiffany from FDOT, and then we can get back with you offline. So thank you very much for your comments.
And thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Ivan. Have you been able to get the other comment on?
Yes, we do have 2 more comments. I'm unmuting the next attendee. Please state your name for the record. Thank you. Hello. We're going to proceed to the next public comment. It seems we still have some issues, and I'm trying to resolve them. Now,
I'm muted too.
Hello. Can you please state your name for the record? I have Eric Tolberg.
Eric, hello. I'm still muted. I can't get out of mute. It keeps putting me in as mute.
No, I hear you.
We hear you loud and clear.
We hear you.
Okay.
We
Sorry.
hear you. All right, I think we're done with the public comments, because Colin.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And let's move on to our items. Member report.
Actually, member reports, yeah. Going once. Going.
Hello.
Hey.
Eric Tolberg here.
Yes, please take the floor.
Okay. I'd just like to report that I sent the maps out at the IPC meeting, and everything was well received. The one thing I would like to bring up is that we are a little bit easier to get around because there's less congestion, but that has caused the speeds to rise. And I think we need to discuss that, what can be done to reduce the speed. I think one of the things is what we attempted to do last time is some way to reduce the number of lanes and put them into bike lanes. But there's got to be some way to reduce the speeding. Hello?
We got you, Eric.
We heard you.
Do you have
Anybody else?
anything else? Or?
That's it.
Okay. Anyone else from the board? Okay. That's member reports. Kevin.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, so then we're going to go, actually, back to you, Colin, for the next, we're going into the items now.
All right, so next item is the U.S. Bicycle Route System, Miami-Dade County. Who is presenting?
Okay, that's supposed to be Patricia Hupp, and I know I saw her name on here. Hopefully she's not having technical issues. And, hold on.
That's not Miami.
Yeah. Her name was on here before. Oh, okay, Patricia, you're, I guess you're showing up 3 times under the attendees. Hopefully you can hear us. We're on
Yeah.
to your project. Oh, is that you?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Is this Patricia?
Yes.
Yes, all right.
Then we can hear you.
Anyway, for allowing us to give a presentation. Kerry Irons is also on the line. He is our U.S. Bike Route volunteer from Michigan. He is able to attend the virtual meeting, and we appreciate the opportunity to present this for through Miami-Dade, our proposal for updating the U.S. bike route. And so, Kerry, if you're on, can you unmute Kerry Irons?
All right, that's Kerry, K-E-R-R-I-Y. They're
Yes.
onto the attendees list.
Right.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to spend just a few minutes today talking about the proposal to realign US Bike Route 1 as it passes through actually the entire state of Florida, but specifically Miami-Dade County. I'll give you a little bit of background on the US Bicycle Route System and explain what it is, and then we'll talk specifically about issues and ideas in Miami-Dade County. So the target audience for the US Bike Route System are long-distance bicycle travelers, so people who are doing multi-day, multi-week, multi-month tours. And in this case, US Bike Route 1 travels from Bar Harbor, Maine to Key West, Florida. It's been approved in the state of Maine, in the state of New Hampshire, parts of it in Massachusetts, Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida. We're working with New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Delaware and Maryland at present as well, and Georgia's looking at a route. So we're hoping to eventually connect the entire thing from Maine to Florida. The route that exists in Florida we'll talk about in a minute. So next slide, please. So the idea is you have a national network of numbered and signed bicycle routes. The numbering part is the designation, the signing part is a separate project. It's officially approved by state transportation agencies, in this case FDOT, and AASHTO, which is the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials. If you're not familiar with AASHTO, it's the national membership organization of all the state DOTs. They're responsible for the US bike route system, but also the interstate highway system and the federal highway system and a bunch of other stuff. The manual and uniform traffic control devices is under their scope. So AASHTO is the federal agency that recognizes and controls the US bike route system. The Adventure Cycling Association, I'm the national volunteer coordinator with the Adventure Cycling Association, and we are the technical support group to AASHTO for the US bike route system. And we're working with states all across the country to expand the US bike route system. So next slide, please. And for those of you who don't know the Adventure Cycling Association, we're a 50,000 member national nonprofit. Our mission is to inspire, empower, and connect people to travel by bikes. We actually, this slide's a little bit out of date. We have over 50,000 miles of routes that we have mapped. We sell maps to those routes. We organize tours. We have a magazine, and we do national advocacy for bicycle touring. Next slide, please.
Just got the latest one.
Good. So we're, like I said, we're 53,000 members, and our route network is part of the blueprint for the national system. The national system, the U.S. bike route system, would be much bigger than the adventure cycling route network, but all the adventure cycling routes are part of that national blueprint. Next slide, please. So in 1982, the first U.S. bike routes were designated. U.S. Bike Route 76, which was patterned after the Adventure Cycling Bike Centennial Route, was approved by Illinois, Kentucky, and Virginia. And U.S. Bike Route 1, which is what we're talking about here, was approved by Virginia and North Carolina. But then the whole thing went into remission, kind of went the way the oil crisis and so on. But in 2004, AASHTO restarted the process, created a task force. Adventure Cycling was a member of that task force. East Coast Greenway was a member of the task force, Mississippi River Trail, and a number of state DOTs, as well as Federal Highways Administration and so on. And that task force worked for a number of years, as is the nature of federal task force. Adventure Cycling basically put in the kitty staff time, both paid staff and volunteers like myself. And in 2008, AASHTO approved a process for designating U.S. bike routes and a corridor plan. And I always say the corridor plan is like when Eisenhower said, boys, go to the blackboard and draw me a interstate highway system. And it definitely was a blackboard, and it definitely was boys in the 50s. So the corridor plan for the U.S. bike route system is very similar. It's a plan on which states can act to designate routes. And then in 2011, the first new route was designated since 1982. Next slide, please. We've currently got almost 14,500 miles in 29 states. Again, this slide needs to be updated, but there's just a round that's finishing right now with AASHTO for some. California will be designating US Bike Route 50, and Wisconsin by designating US Bike Route 30. So on this map, the solid lines are already designated. The dashed lines are corridors where you could designate a route. You'll notice in Florida, US Bike Route 1 along the east coast of Florida, the Atlantic coast, and then US Bike Route 90 across the Panhandle to St. Augustine. It says below there will be 50,000 miles of this when complete, but if you look at the map there and say, well, that's 15,000 miles, it'll be way more than 50,000 miles when it's done. Next slide, please. So this project that we're talking about for US Bike Route 1 is a realignment of bike routes in Florida. Currently, US Bike Route 1 in Florida is all on US 1 or Florida A1A. And there are many places along the route where it could be put on quieter city streets and county roads and trails to improve the riding experience for cyclists, either by being more bicycle-friendly streets or better access to services, better scenery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The reason it's all on state highways at present is that when FDOT originally designated these routes in 2014, so it's been 6 years, they did not have the bandwidth to work with local agencies to get the approvals to put it on non-state highways, and that is what has to happen. I'll explain that in a little bit, how the process works. But the realignment basically is using the East Coast Greenway and the Adventure Cycling Atlantic Coast Route as drafts for realignment. And US Bike Route 90 is basically on Florida 100 and US 90, among others. And we're realigning that one as well using the Adventure Cycling Southern Tier as a draft for realignment. Next slide, please. So jurisdictional support is required. There's 22 road owners that we're talking to, jurisdictions, agencies for US BR1. So these are counties and cities, basically, that own the pavement that we're talking about moving the route onto. And in order for FDOT to submit an application to AASHTO, they need those local agency approvals to do it. And there's 23 required for US Bike Route 90. And adventure cycling volunteers like Patty Huff and myself are doing the local outreach to get to the agencies and get their support. Next slide. So this is a image, obviously not in very much detail, of the entire Miami-Dade County portion of the route draft at this point. There's a link there. Every time there's a change, that link stays live. So if for example, from today's discussion, changes are suggested, we incorporate those. This is a ride with GPS map for those of you who are familiar with that. And so you can look at that at any time, and it'll reflect the current consensus on what the map looks like. Next slide, please. This is kind of busy, but it basically, and it's actually out of date based on some discussions, I think just in the last few days. But the idea, so this is for Miami-Dade County and the city of Miami, Miami Beach, etc. But it comes in off of Florida A1A on the 95th, Byron Avenue, 75th, Dickens Avenue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all the routes. And Eric pointed out to us that vis-a-vis the M-Path, it doesn't need to go on US 1. I'll be tweaking that later today or tomorrow to fix that. So it's all on the M-Path along US 1 south of Miami. And yeah, so next slide. So we expect local input on the route. Local agencies have the final say. They're the ones who approve the route, and so when they request a change, it's accepted / negotiated. And the reason I say negotiated is if it goes outside of a given jurisdiction's boundaries, then we have to negotiate with the adjacent jurisdiction to make sure that the connection point is agreed. But within that context, if the local community says, no, we want it to go right through downtown, so cyclists see our beautiful beachfront community, whereas we had bypassed the community for a quieter county road, then we move it, and vice versa. We don't want any more bikes on our city streets. We want it off on this back road. We move it there as well. Next slide. So what is this realignment going to do? Well, it's obviously the main goal is to improve bike routes for bike travelers. You click down through these. Obviously, by making the route more bike friendly, it's positive health and environmental impacts. Low impact tourism is the perfect example, and I think everybody these days is very anxious to get tourism going again. For smaller communities, for a city the size of Miami, obviously, if another couple 3,000 bikes per year were rolling through town, it wouldn't really have any impact on the tourism business in the city. But for a smaller community, it can keep a gas station open, it can keep a motel open, it can keep a city park in business, it can keep that convenience store open, it can have significant impact in small communities. Next bullet. Okay, so that's kind of the end of it. Patty is on the line. She's our local coordinator in your area, and that's her email address and her phone number. Like I said, I'm the U.S. Bike Route Volunteer Coordinator for the country, but I'm also working on individual routes and working on US Bike Route 1 in Florida. There's my 2 phone numbers. And then Laura Crawford, who's not on this call, but she's the staff person in Missoula, Montana at headquarters, and she coordinates the entire project across the country. So with that, questions about this, and then we've got some specific input from Eric and would seek input from you folks as well on some route suggestions relative to the route as it's drafted right now. But if you've got any more general questions before we get into that.
All right, questions from the board.
Yes, Kevin, I sent an email to Patty Huff with a copy to you. Could you put that up so that people can see what I wrote in?
I do not have that email as part of the slide deck, Eric.
Okay, that's fine. One of the general questions I have is, can we have the possibility of a different northbound and southbound route? There are many places where it would be more convenient to use one route northbound and a different route southbound.
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's good. One of the places is, for instance, Hollover Beach Park. Going southbound, you probably don't want to cross the road twice, but going northbound, there's a nice path on Hollover Beach Park, and you can just go on the path and take a break from the traffic. There's many spots like that, particularly the beach path.
I do want to say that on Holliver Park, we do have a project program that will put bike lanes on both the northbound and southbound, and that will be finished in 2023.
Does that include the bridge to reach Holliver Park?
No, that just stops right after the bridge.
Right,
So that's where the
that is a dangerous section that should be looked at.
Yeah, I understand.
Yes, there's one point I think we should bring up today, and that was point 4 on my email, which is there's a dangerous section of US 1 from the end of the M path, a quarter mile to Card Sound Road where the bike lanes begin.
Oh,
I understand the preferred route is Card Sound Road. In either case,
no.
a short path behind the guardrail on the west side of US 1 would be a lifesaver. And that's particularly important, that just quarter mile stretch. And there's no way to go with either Card Sound Road or US 1 bike lanes without going on the middle of a busy highway. So I would hope that's something we can work on.
Yeah, is there any time period where, I know, Eric, you sent, this is Patty. Eric, you sent me, the map showing that where that is, and I'm familiar with it. And I shared your email with Carrie, so we both have been talking about your comments. But is there any time period where anyone can see we're going to have some improvement on that quarter mile stretch?
FDOT was looking at that section of US 1, and I brought it up, but I don't know that they're willing to, because you'd have to build a separate path on the outside of the guardrail. So it's going to be expensive, but I don't see any other way to keep people safe.
It's in that section, the difficult part is the environmental sensitivity. That's the hard part in that area. When it comes to,
if I could make a comment, so the adventure cycling route through that area stays on US 1. It doesn't use Card Sound Road.
That's better. Card Sound is not safe.
Well, we're exactly looking for that input. So we've got feedback from folks that said, gee, Card Sound is a nice road. We ought to use that instead.
Not when you got box trucks going 60 miles an hour and you can reach out and touch them with left hand.
So I don't know exactly how to achieve consensus on this, but it's certainly easy enough to leave the route on US 1, which is again where the adventure cycling route is.
Much better.
And so that's what Mike says.
I can tell you the only time that I've ridden Card Sound and I felt it was safe was it was closed and the police were escorting us for a bike ride.
One of the reasons.
Card Sound is a nightmare.
Yeah. This is Patty again. This is one of the reasons we use that as an alternative is that we talked to East Coast Greenway, and that was the route that they were told that would be the best way to get down to the Keys for their Way Tour last November. So that's why they chose, and we were considering Card Sound, but whatever you think is the safest for cyclists is the best.
Yeah, we would look to you guys for that input.
Well, the weird thing is when I was talking to East Coast Greenway about that, when I look at my data and I have access to Strava data, I show that there are quite a few cyclists using Card Sound Road. So that's when it became a place.
They do.
It is, if you look at the East Coast Greenway's map, Card Sound Road is the East Coast Greenway.
I'm just talking from personal experience.
Yeah, well, and that's why it's great to be in front of you folks and try to get that input. As I always tell people, I'm not from around here. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm looking to do the best based on what we hear from knowledgeable local folks.
Hello, Eric Koberg. Can I say something? Okay.
Yes.
One of the problems with the bike lanes is that on the northbound route, where it switched from 2 lanes it switched from a single lane to 2 lanes, they narrowed the shoulder. But unfortunately, they put the inverted rumble strips right in the middle of the shoulder so that you couldn't use it. I've been told it's been fixed, but I have not checked it out. I think that's one of the problems with the US 1 route is that sometimes the shoulder disappears because the inverted rumble strips go right up the 4-foot strip on the side of the road. There was also a problem with some of the grates. I think those have been fixed by now. Okay.
I don't know.
So the issue with the inverted rumble strips, I think we covered that a few years ago, and DOT was looking at remedying that. So I think if that was something that was going to be fixed, then I think it would make the not Card Sound Road the option. Is that? Because Card Sound Road is pretty scary. I can't really imagine biking on Card Sound Road comfortably.
Better.
And there's no access for several miles off of it. So if you do have an issue or an injury or anything like that, it's going to take someone a long time to get help.
No.
Also, I'm not sure about cell coverage there. That might be an issue too.
I think with it's Patty again. I think with East Coast Greenway, because they had support vehicles and it was a group ride, it's a lot different than trying to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
There sounds like there's an opportunity to communicate with East Coast Greenway on this if they're.
Yeah, the southern leg of the Tour de Force is a good example. The southern leg of the Tour de Force is police escorted the whole way down, and that was the best time I've ever ridden on Card Sound. But other than that, no.
Okay. All this is taken into account. We'll realign the route and keep it on US 1 and contact the East Coast Greenway to inform them of the feedback at least. Thanks for that.
Okay, this is Eric again, but recognize that 1 quarter-mile section, whichever route you take, you've got to use that section. So that's a critical thing that FDOT needs to fix.
Yeah, I put it in my notes.
Eric, was there anything else that you wanted to say about the beach path, the number 2 item that you had in your email about the beach path, the more relaxing route? I agree it is, but I don't know if you wanted to comment on that at all.
Yes, the thing about the beach path is right now they've torn up the boardwalk, but they have not put down the pavers. So right now, neither pedestrians nor bicycles can use the boardwalk. So between 24th Street and 45th Street, you really can't use the beach walk. And I don't know how, if you put out temporary notices or whatever, but that section is not accessible.
And do they know when they're going to fix that?
They've been talking next year, but I don't know what time next year.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
And just for everyone's insight, the AASHTO position on facility upgrades is that if the construction bid has been let, so basically construction is either underway or about to begin, then the proposed new facility can be part of the US bike route. But as long as something's still in the planning stages, AASHTO's position is that when we've approved the US bike route, people expect to be able to ride on it. So planning stage is not sufficient to incorporate in the US bike route. So, but every 6 months, FDOT can submit to realign the route. And so if something like this is underway in the planning stages, but with an uncertain completion date, that can be you can have an alternate route that doesn't use that facility, and then when that facility is complete, it can be incorporated. And just to be clear, so I understand that comment, Eric. So 45th Street obviously does not come out to the path, right? Or it doesn't come out to the beach.
Yes, the entrance is at the park, which is at 47th Street. So that the section from 45th to 47th is useless right now.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm probably looking in the wrong place because I'm looking at Miami Beach. We're not talking about Miami Beach?
No,
yes,
we are.
it's Miami Beach from it actually somewhere around 23rd Street to be safe, because 24th Street is where it ends, but I think they're also maybe working there. I'm not sure.
So 24th Street is basically at the second here.
It's
Zooming in,
before
zooming in.
Dade Boulevard, but Eric was,
Yeah.
wouldn't you go the Pine Tree or LaGroute or something instead of over on the beach in that section?
Well, on the northbound road, I might think about taking the beach path as far as it goes and taking Collins Avenue, which is northbound, where the beach path is closed. But on the southbound route, I think you're much better taking the inland route with Pine Tree Boulevard, LaGorce, etc., State Boulevard.
Okay, Eric, if you could send me kind of a detailed cue sheet as to how you propose to do that, because I'm looking at where 24th Street hits Pine Tree Drive, and there's a traffic circle and a little bridge, and it looks like it may be a little bit of a challenge for somebody who's never ridden in the area before. I just want to make sure that that's something that's appropriate for people who are just passing through, may never have ridden this area before, and probably will never ride it again.
Okay, each time I've ridden it, I've always used the beach path, and then when it's not available, gone on to Collins Avenue just until I got past the obstruction. On the southbound route, then I went southbound by the inland route, and that's why I took LaGorce and later switch over to Pine Tree Drive, and then Prairie Avenue, Dade Boulevard, and across the Venetian.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could send me a detailed set of instructions for that proposed thing so I can take a look at it. But that is a concern. It's feedback we frequently get from long distance riders is,
They don't want too many turns.
They don't want too many turns. They want a fairly direct route. And we do get comments about it. My bifocals don't work that fast to be able to see the map on my handlebars or read the computer or whatever it might be. So, okay. And
do we have any other comments or questions? Yes, Brett.
Well, one thing I would suggest is I think we have a member from the beach, and if so, they might be a better person to give detailed instructions than me, who lives in South Dade.
He is not on the call, I don't believe.
Charles Fisher's not here right now.
But we do have Brett Beveau, who has comments. So let's move to him, please.
Yeah, if you want to put that person in touch with me, I'd be happy to have that conversation with them as well. So whoever wants to do that.
Kevin can,
I have a
can coordinate that. Thank you. Yes.
This
Sorry,
is Janet Fernandez. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If I understand correctly, the request is to, I guess, get input from users to find out whether another route could be used for bike route 1, correct? It's just based on requests from users. Is that the case?
So what we're doing here is we're proposing this route and looking for input. So we proposed a route. We have a draft route. We're looking for input where maybe that draft route is suboptimal based on local input. So we're not trying to create something from scratch, but if somebody says, I've looked at your route and here's a better alternative, we're interested in that, yes.
Okay. So is there any way, I'm representing the Department of Transportation and Public Works with Miami-Dade County. Is there any way of obtaining exactly the route that's being proposed?
Yeah, so if you go back to the top of, or about the middle of this slide deck, there's a link to the map. It's a web link right there.
Okay. Okay, I'll go there and find that.
Yeah, if you do that, and at the bottom of the slide deck is my contact information, Carrie Irons. So you can get a hold of me directly via email or phone.
Okay. My second question is, if just like you mentioned, you're going to get different opinions from different people. Some people might prefer Crandon Boulevard versus Car Sound versus US 1. So do you require a specific study in addition to the user input? Example, number of crashes on one road versus crashes on the other road. In order to make a decision, how are you approaching this if you get conflicting requests from different people?
I always joke that if you get 2 cyclists in a room and you ask them for the best route from A to B, you'll get at least 3 answers.
Yes.
We all know that. So it really comes down to taking the input that we received and making a gut call. At the end of the day, we would propose to the local agency. So if it's FDOT, if it's Miami-Dade County, if it's Miami Beach, if it's the city of Miami, and propose to them, here's our proposal based on the input we've received. And if they accept that, then that becomes the route. To suggest that that any given route is the end all and be all and there can't be a better one is obviously preposterous. So, but no, we have not. Occasionally we'll find data, crash data, ADTs, traffic, trucks, one thing and another, but there's no specifications, and AASHTO is well aware of the difficulty of trying to put specifications on something like this. They consciously decided not to require any particular specification, recognizing that sometimes to get from A to B, you have to go through C, and C might not be the best place on the planet, but it's the only way to get to B. So there you go.
Okay. Is there an are you planning to come back to BPAC once you have the final alignment, like once all these modifications have been considered, to come back to BPAC or keep us like FDOT and ourselves in the loop to you know, because we need to be aware of whether a county road was added or subtracted. We want to be involved in it as well. How do we do that?
So each agency, so we're looking for the BPAC to say, and we can reflux this as many times as the BPAC would like to, but I'll make a few map changes based on the feedback we've gotten tonight and maybe some comments from Eric and a person that he might put me in touch with, and feed that back. I don't know if that involves another meeting, but we're looking for the BPAC to say to the local agencies that we, the BPAC, support this route and would encourage you to designate it as US Bike Route 95.
All right, and we do have more member comments. So, Mr. Bobo.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Is it FDOT that designated the current bike route number 1?
Yes.
Okay, and I think we have an FDOT representative on the line.
That was done a long time ago, though, as far as, so we can update it, and that's why he's here, so that we can make those changes.
Understood. Do we have an FDOT representative in the virtual meeting?
That's me, Tiffany.
Okay, and I guess my first question is, what would happen to the existing Route 1 if this change were to occur? As far as designations are considered.
So this would be a realignment of US Bike Route 1. It would be just like if at some point somebody decided we ought to move US 1 from one city street in Miami to another city street in Miami. The old alignment is gone, and the new alignment is the route. So US Bike Route 1.
The old alignment would still be there. It would just no longer be considered bike route number 1.
Well, it depends on your definition of the word alignment, but when somebody says this is the alignment of US Bike Route 1, it's the current alignment.
Right.
But the only.
So, let me try to focus within the city of Miami. Is the current empath, which is becoming the underline, a part of the current bike route number 1?
empath would be the realigned USBR 1, yes.
I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear in my question. Is the current empath designated currently as bike route number 1?
Not to my understanding. My understanding is it's US 1.
Well, to me, that's one and the same.
I think it's Old Cutler Road.
No, wait, isn't it Commodore Trail?
Yeah, Commodore Trail and Old Cutler Road.
I actually have the map up right now. Yeah, so the, yeah, it's not in that section. It's not US.
Excuse me. Can I talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
Commodore Trail and Old Cutler are county bike route 1. So there's confusion. I believe that the empath has the East Coast Greenway markers on it. Eric would know better than that. I don't ride on the empath very much. Eric, am I right about that?
That's correct. The empath is bike route M for obvious reasons. The Old Cutler and the Commodore Trail are county bike route 1. Well, we call it bike route 1. That's why it gets confusing. And again, I could see really problems of having US bike route signs and MUTCD M1-8 signs, which is the ellipse with the number in it. The US bike route signs have kind of a sort of a curved triangle around the number. So it's confusing because there's 2 bike route 1s. And of course, there's also US Route 1. So you can see the possibility of confusion.
Do we have any US bike route signs anywhere in the county? I haven't noticed them. Do we have them?
To my knowledge, there are no US Bike Route signs in Florida.
Okay, so at the moment, there's no confusion and there's no problem. But if these signs get installed, then there will be confusion and there could be a problem. So I don't know if it's a big deal. There are different signs. The county bike route signs are clearly of a kind. The US bike route signs will be different. I don't know that it's really a problem.
Typically, when there's multiple routes on, or when you have multiple routes on one piece of pavement, you have a sign stack. And so there might be like an East Coast Greenway sign, a US Bike Route 1 sign, a county bike route sign, all on the same sign pole.
And then I just wanted to state that the current US bike route does align with the MPath right now, or US 1 in that section. It actually goes, it cuts over on 15th and then it follows the MPath from there.
Okay, Brett,
Okay.
you had more comments.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so the one that we're discussing, which is US Bike Route number 1, there is a section which is the current MPath, correct?
That's what we just heard.
Yes.
Okay.
Originally, they had a few jogs, but
Eric, hang on. Let Brett finish. I think they answered his question. So
Okay, so my question is, at that specific section, where is the proposal to move it? Where would it be moved to?
It wouldn't.
It would stay the same.
Yes.
Okay, where within the city of Miami, are there any proposed changes to the existing route location?
Yes. Where it goes off US 1, currently it goes through Miami on US 1, and we're talking about city streets.
I thought we just confirmed that that area was not changing.
The MPath part isn't, but north of there is. North of the north end of the MPath.
Which is Brickell Station.
Is there a map that shows the existing route and the proposed route?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. FDOT, the FDOT rep that is on the phone. I'm hoping to seek your input at this juncture. What do you think so far?
Well, I definitely think that north of when the MPath begins, it is difficult because we have a lot of disconnect there, and we should really evaluate the best route in that section. And that's where I think we need good input to provide him. But
Yeah,
I think
so the proposed route north of the MPath at present is to use 2nd Avenue, I think it is, up to Flagler. So 15th, Southwest 15th from the MPath to 2nd Avenue up to Flagler and over to US 1 and then up to the Venetian. So that's an example where it's on city streets, not aligned with the MPath.
yeah, the bridges that
Okay. So
I'm sorry, Brett is still asking his question, so continue, please.
thank you. So I think we also heard some wise comments from Miami-Dade County Public Works asking questions about if studies or data were a part of the proposal, asking to be a part of the process, not knowing if the proposed route includes county streets or not. So and asking the question if they'd be willing to come back in the future, which I didn't hear really an objection. I always prefer taking up things, the first time they're scheduled, but I feel that I don't feel comfortable at this juncture. So what I would respectfully suggest is that 2 maps be prepared. Map 1 is the existing bike route number 1, and map 2 would be the proposed new version. And to provide that to the board in advance of our next meeting and place this item on the agenda for that next meeting.
Sound good.
And can I ask that you reach out to the agencies that would be responsible for the roadways?
Yeah, that's Patty's role.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do it. Yes.
Okay. if you need any contacts for the city of Miami, please let me know.
Okay, thank you.
You know, we felt the best route or best path. Don't want to use the word route because we're working on US bike routes. The best path was to talk to you folks first, get your input, get your guidance, get your thoughts, and then carry that forward with another reflux and contacts, obviously, with the agencies, because it is those local agencies. It's not like they're going to somehow be left out of this. They have to sign off. There's no way to bypass them. There's no way to leave them out of the loop. They have to sign off on this.
Well, and I just have to say, being FDOT, and when I see that a corridor, a roadway segment is also a US bike route, it really triggers me to try to push those type of improvements when the road is constructed. So I think if we can align this with what our plans are within the city, then that can help us further along our projects.
If I may intersect to that, that means that if this new route is approved, that goes through the underline, through US 1, then no longer we're gonna have a bigger wait for Commodore Trail, which used to be part of Bike Route 1.
No. Commodore Trail was County Bike Route 1.
Right. This is US.
Still
bike
is.
route 1.
That's correct.
All right, so we can look forward to seeing some additional maps, and maybe we'll have, and I guess we'll have you all come back in a not too distant future, and hopefully we'll have some additional input, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and just one quick comment reference to maps. So it's my understanding, although I might not be completely correct, but it's my understanding that currently through the Miami area, US Bike Route 1 is on US 1. And so the map link that we provided is the proposed alternative, but it's my understanding it's on US 1. And let me just, I got one more place to check here.
It's parallel to US 1. The MPath.
Well, okay, US 1/MPath, but currently north of Miami Beach, it's on A1A, and then it jumps over to US 1 and stays on US 1 to the MPath. So that's, in terms of wanting a separate map for what the current route is, that is the current route.
Right.
But I think it would also be helpful to all involved to see that current route and how it connects with that section from north to south and from south to north.
Okay. I think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
Thank you very much for your time, everybody.
No, thank you. Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
Great. Let's move on to the next item. DOT non-motorized traffic monitoring program with Mr. Eric Katz, who dressed up for the occasion. So thank you, Eric.
Of course. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everybody. My name is Eric Katz. I am a transportation planner with Marlin Engineering, Inc., and I've been working for the past 2 years as an in-house consultant for FDOT Transportation Data and Analytics Office located in Tallahassee, Florida. So I'm a big fan of the Miami-Dade TPO, big fan of non-motorized facilities in South Florida. I moved from Miami to Tallahassee 2 years ago, literally exactly 2 years ago, to begin the development of this statewide program. So today's meeting, and thank you, Kevin, for the invite, is to provide the Miami-Dade TPO BPAC with a status update on where we are now as we're just crossing 2 years for the statewide non-motorized program. If I can have the next slide, please. Thank you. So for the agenda, we've broken our statewide program into 4 main sections. So I'm going to go over each of those 4 pillars of our program one at a time, and then we should have enough time for any questions or feedback from anyone. So next slide, please. So starting with our continuous counters, and I just want to provide a little bit more context. The Transportation Data and Analytics Office has been historically responsible for managing all of the motorized continuous counters that exist throughout the state of Florida. There's over 350 continuous count stations that are counting 24/7, 365, all of the motorized traffic that's happening, that's occurring, going over those roadway counters. Starting 2 years ago, the TDA office has now been given the added responsibility of developing and managing the non-motorized traffic monitoring program. So we are still at the early stages of putting traffic counters that are counting bikes and peds and other forms of micromobility throughout the state of Florida. So the map here shows you the 4 continuous counters that we have throughout the state. I mentioned on our motorized side, which has been over 60 years in existence, is 350 plus. That also, when you add to that the thousands of short-term motorized counters that exist around the state, gives you a sense of where we are in our still infancy stage of this non-motorized count program. We have 4 continuous counters, and I'll get to in a moment to show you what we've done in regard to short-term counts so far. But actually, District 6 has the most of our continuous counters thus far. We have 2 continuous counters, one in Miami Beach, all the way on the Atlantic Greenway Trail, and the other on the Chrome Path. I'll show you some photos in a moment. We also just recently were able to successfully get one installed in Tampa, and our first continuous counter was not far from our office in Tallahassee. So part of the milestone for this program is that FDOT now feels a lot more confident in regard to site selection. We're learning a lot more about the technology and the feasibility of what it takes to actually count bicycles and pedestrians accurately to make sure we're not missing anyone. So it's very nuanced, and there so far is not one specific type of technology that works best. It takes into account the geography, the land use, the actual facility that you're counting, the amount of volume that you anticipate to count, all plays a factor in the type of technology that you want to choose of what's going to become that count station. So we've come a long way in the past 2 years of learning that process, and we feel more confident as we continue to develop the program that we're going to be capturing accurate data. So next slide, please. So that previous picture showed you a statewide perspective. I just want to do a little zoom in just so you can actually see what the count stations look like per site. This is in downtown Tampa. This is the Jackson Street cycle track that goes right through the urban core of downtown Tampa. And you can see all of the agencies that played a role in either the funding or the site selection and the general support in regard to finding the site and making sure a point that we felt this was the best spot that was feasible to count bicycles and pedestrians accurately along this facility. It's the first fully built out separated bicycle lane within the state of Florida. So that was one of the reasons that we thought it was important to make sure that we started collecting data on this facility as soon as possible. So this funding came from the FHWA State Transportation Innovation Council. FDOT TDA office was given funding to support 1 continuous count installation per FDOT district. There's 7 FDOT districts throughout the state of Florida plus Turnpike. And we have already decided the stick grant counter that's going to be in District 6 is actually going to be in Key West. But if we can move on to the next slide. So in regard to the District 6 counters, you can see here our recent installation that was done on Miami Beach. This is the Atlantic Greenway Trail. It's part of the Sun Trail network. It's a new segment of path. This location is the closest cross street is Northeast 55th Street. So you can say this is the Atlantic Greenway Trail at Northeast 55th Street. And little bit of backstory on this. This is the city of Miami Beach reached out to FDOT TDA informing them that they had been donated a counter, the infrared counter, that post that you see there. They had been donated that from a local vendor. However, they did not have installation funding to get the counter in. So FDOT TDA provided installation support on getting the post installed into the ground. In addition to that, because we also think the bicycle count was important, FDOT TDA funded the installation of those 2 horizontal strips that you see on the ground. Those are piezo strips, and that is what's detecting bicycle traffic heading in both directions. So together, we're able to get a good classification in regard to how many bikes and peds are crossing through that field of vision for that counter. So it's a great partnership, and many thanks to the Miami-Dade TPO. At the time, it was David Henderson who proposed that this would be a great site to have a counter, and so I'm glad that we were able to deliver on getting that count installation done. If we can move on to the next slide, please. Okay, this shows you the next District 6 counter that was installed just a couple months ago. This is on the Chrome Path, a new shared use path facility on State Road 997. And here was an opportunity we were approached by Baptist Health, West Kendall Baptist Hospital. Their hospital is just a couple miles away from here. And they reached out to our office and proposed if it was possible to have a counter installed somewhere within their neighborhood if they provided the installation and purchase of the counter funding, which was great. That was an excellent partnership. We said absolutely, and we were able to get this counter installed. This is a very, very great counter in that we have an overhead sensor that's looking downward. One of the reasons why we like the overhead sensor the best is because it improves accuracy. What happens when we have a group of runners or a group of cyclists that are in one clump or one peloton traveling together, crossing through? If you have a standard counter, like with a side fire, like you saw before, you have an opportunity to get occlusion, which you'll be undercounting. So with the overhead unit, it makes it a lot more accurate, and we're able to, as we've tested it, we've had groups of bikers and walkers and runners or all at once go through, and it's able to classify each person much more accurately. So this gives you an example of our latest and greatest in regard to the type of count stations that we're trying to get installed all around the state. We can move on to the next slide. And finally, this was our first count station installation. This is here in Tallahassee, and this is the St. Mark's Trail. It's the most popular trail in the Tallahassee area. This is a great partnership with DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, who manage this trail. And one of the what I wanted to point out, when we see an opportunity, when we see infrastructure like that archway, it gives us an opportunity to get that overhead counter that we like, that is good for accuracy, and it also helps reduce costs in regard to building a count station, because now we don't have to install the post that gets put into the ground. We can use the existing infrastructure. So that's part of what we look for when we're doing our site selection process. So that gives you a good, I think, a good snapshot of what's been going on in regard to our continuous counters. We can move on to the next slide. And what I should have emphasized in the very beginning of this presentation is that the intent of this program is to collect data, do so as accurately as possible, and then make sure that it's put out there in the public to use. So this will not just be for FDOT's consumption. This will be of anyone, any agency, government agency, or advocacy group, or anyone from the public will be able to get access to this data very soon. So how do we get to continuous count stations? We're very, very still at the infancy stage of installing stations all over the state. What we're trying to work towards is, before we install an expensive continuous count station, we want to start first with doing short-term counts. So short-term counts have been going on throughout the state for the past year. Right now, the majority of our counters, our short-term counters, have been used for a transit study. You can see the 5 transit agencies that we're partnering with right now, including Broward County, SFRTA Tri-Rail, Indian River County, Gainesville, and Jacksonville Transportation Authority. Why it's relevant to this presentation here in Miami is that we did do one short-term count on Tri-Rail at the Opelika Tri-Rail station. So we've done one short-term count in Miami-Dade County thus far for this program, and we do have 2 continuous counters being installed. We are looking forward to year 3 of the programming. We're going to be upping short-term counts throughout the state, including District 6 in Miami-Dade County. And I will be working closely with Tiffany Gerke on the phone in regard to scheduling those counts, where they're going to be done. And we would love to get input from the BPAC and anyone from the audience in regard to where FDOT should be considering to be placing these count stations. So the types of technology that we're using in regard to the short-term counters is a combination of tube counts, similar to what you see for motorized traffic, but these are specifically geared to detect bicycles, and infrared counters. We have been using some smart camera technology for our transit study as well. So if we can move to the next slide. I did see a question go up. I can take it now, or we can wait till the end.
I was just going to say the underline. You need to have it on the underline somewhere, like just north of University of Miami. Be perfect.
All right, we'll wait till the end for questions, please.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Mike.
No problem. No, thank you. Thank you.
I got to go.
And yes, absolutely, the underline has come up numerous times as a place to count. And many thanks to the Miami-Dade TPO, who's already got a continuous counter by the Vizcaya station. And it's great. It's actually a perfect segue into this slide. Our repository, as I mentioned, not only do we want to collect as accurately as possible, validate that data, report that data up to FHWA, we want to then push it out to the public, make it accessible to anybody. And that includes not just what FDOT has counted, but other agencies that are involved in doing counts as well. This transportation data management system, which I'm showing a screenshot of right now, can take other people's data as well beyond just FDOT. So that's, again, we're in the early stages of our program. We're already establishing data sharing relationships with numerous agencies around the state. But the exciting news is that it's going to accelerate the effectiveness of this program, because one small office can only do so much in regard to a state of this size and scale. But if we have other agencies that are already counting, collecting data, they can send it to us. We're going to want to validate it just as we do our data that we count as well. But once it's validated, we can report it to FHWA, which helps us as a state, and then more people will get more access to more data as well. So that is what we're working on. I showed a screenshot of this. What we're seeing here is the back end of this transportation data management system that I'm working on. Basically how it works is you have to establish a count station. That's those dots that you see there on that map that shows you everywhere that we've either done a short-term count or where we have one of our continuous counters. Once you establish the station, you can then feed data into that system. And then once we validate it, we'll be able to make it publicly accessible. We're not there yet. We're still working on it. But I would love to say that in the next 6 months or sooner, you should start to see that there's going to be data being added to this transportation data management system. So next slide. And this is my final slide, and then I have a quick demo that I want to show. It was in regard to our outreach. It's been a big component of our program over the past 2 years. We've been doing a lot of coordination from the FHWA to state to the local level in regard to coordinating, establishing partnerships, letting people know this is what we're doing, this is what our goals are. It's taken a lot of work just to get to that point. But now I think much of the state is familiar with our program. They know what we're doing. They know what our goals are. And we've have a lot of great partnerships all around the state, including District 6, Miami-Dade TPO, Miami-Dade County, City of Miami, Miami Beach. It's been great partnerships thus far. So if we can quickly, I just wanted to do a quick demo of our webpage. Thank you very much. We work really hard to be transparent with our entire program. So if we can just scroll through slowly, if you can get to this site, it's going to have all 4 pillars that I just went over. And real quick, if we can slide down to where it says statewide data repository, to that section. So if you look at resources, if you click on that map will show you the over 500 locations that have been proposed throughout the state on where FDOT should be counting. It also will show you where our existing places that we've done either short-term counts or continuous counts. It's all there. Next on that link is, oh, thank you. So we're opening the map. We can open the map. I'll wait. There we go. And press OK. And then if you can click on the top right, you'll see those 3 dots. Okay, that legend there shows you, so those red stars represent the 4 continuous count stations. The purple dots show you everywhere where we've actually done a short-term count. And then the blues and the greens represent all of the proposed stations. So 2 years ago, some people might remember a survey that went out all around the state. That's what the blue dots represent. We have cataloged every single one of those stations that were proposed. And then within the past 2 years, we've been going out through the state, evaluating those stations in regard to feasibility for technology. So all those green dots represent sites that we've actually visited with the survey taker, and we have a much better understanding on the type of technology that we would be putting if that were to indeed become a count station. So that's all there. It's all transparent on that page. If you're not satisfied with all of the count stations that we have there, if you think that is a certain location that's been missing, you can provide feedback on that web page, the traffic monitoring web page. The link right below it says, would you like to propose a non-motorized count station? Please click here to fill out a questionnaire. That will open up to a survey. Once you take that survey, add the stations and the locations that you've proposed, I will get an alert and I will update the map. And then we'll have a better understanding of what it is you're proposing. And at some point, I will be reaching out to you for more information. So that's there on the web page. We can go back to the web page, please. As if you go down to next outreach, as I've mentioned, we've been very busy trying to get the word out, keep people up to date on what we're involved in. So we have quarterly outreach blasts that we do, which involves either statewide meetings, newsletters, or webinars. We also write reports. So all of our reports, all of the content from our statewide meetings or our newsletters or webinars are all there. You can click on those links and all the content will be there available to you. If you keep going down to the loaner program, short-term count loaner program. So we have a stockpile of equipment and we want to partner with local agencies in regard to getting that equipment out to these potential stations to be counted. So right there, there's a memorandum of agreement that explains the details of how that loaner program works. We need an agreement to be signed before we can move forward. That MOA template is right there under resources, so you can just click on that link. It's a 4-page memorandum of agreement. You can fill it out, sign it, and that's a big check off the blocks in order to get the loaner program activated for your jurisdiction. And then finally, continuous counts program. Scroll down there. We do have a link to our F monitoring guide. This is a detailed document manual in regard to anybody involved in traffic counts. Many traffic engineers are familiar with the traffic monitoring handbook, but now since about 1.5 years ago, we've added a chapter dedicated to non-motorized data collection. So if you have an existing non-motorized count program and you want it to be standardized towards what FDOT and FHWA are looking towards, this is a good resource for you. Or if you don't have a program and you want to get one started, this is definitely a great resource for you to help you get started. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much. I had an email from Mr. Eric Tolberg. He had some questions. Should I go through those questions first, or do we go to the audience?
Let's hear it from, hang on, Eric. If there's any other questions prior, because I imagine that'll go on for a little while. So before we get into that, anyone else? I do have one question. What are the volumes on the beach walk since you installed it?
So yes, unfortunately, I don't have accurate numbers to share at this time, and I wish I could. So we've had technicians going out there doing inspections, and with that, I can't be completely 100% confident in the data yet. I will be confident with the April data set, which I haven't looked at yet. It should be good. And then May. And then every month, I've already coordinated with our technicians to start sending me a May report. Once I start getting those monthly reports, I would like to share them with numerous folks here to review that and see if those numbers make sense.
All right, sounds good.
But I would like to add, sorry, there absolutely has been an uptick in non-motorized activity from all of our counters. I can definitely attest to seeing an increase in non-motorized activity
during the COVID period.
Absolutely.
Oh, very good. I'd like to hear the numbers when you have a confidence in them. All right, and to Eric's questions, please.
Mr. Tolbert's questions. Okay. One second. Thought I had them up. 1 second. Okay. All right. Okay. So in general, are infrared detectors for pedestrians and pneumatic tubes detectors for bicycles? Pneumatic tubes do detect bicycles. Infrared detects presence. So normally, if the facility supports it, we would put a tube counter and an infrared counter right next to each other. The tubes just capture the bikes, and the infrared captures everything, whether it's a bike or a pedestrian. So what we would normally do, if we had both pieces of equipment next to each other, we subtract the bike counts from the total count that the infrared got, and that would be our classification for pedestrians. So the answer is no, it doesn't specifically count pedestrians. Now, many times we'll put it on a facility such as a sidewalk where you can assume pedestrians, but as we know, in Florida and Miami-Dade County, there's many bicycle riders on sidewalks, so we couldn't 100% say that that was a pedestrian with just an infrared counter. Was that adequate, Mr. Tolberg, and I'll move on?
Yes, although does the infrared detector, I mean, can it tell how big something is? In other words, do you get a different signature from a bicycle than you do from a pedestrian?
Yes, it can, and that depends on the type of infrared that you purchase. Now, I would say our infrared portable counters are the most affordable infrared counters that you can buy. So with that, the great news is that they work and that they count total volume, which is the most important. But some of the other features, such as direction and length and speed, do not come with that counter. However, our continuous counters, which I would say are above average, I would say are advanced level types of equipment, that infrared can detect direction and speed and length. So really it depends on the vendor and the amount that you're paying for that type of technology. So our portables, no. Our continuous, yes.
Okay. Just could you quickly go down what information you can get? Maybe just yes, no.
So I'm
time
looking
of
down
bike
your
crossing.
list. Yes, so our continuous counters can get an accurate timestamp of exactly when a bike or a pedestrian crossed through the counter's field of vision. It can detect direction. It can detect speed. The time that the pedestrians crossed. If that's a timestamp that you're asking, then yes, we can get that. The number in a group. We couldn't necessarily say that we knew that there was a group unless I saw on a timestamp that there was a lot of hits all happening within a couple of seconds of each other. But that would be the only way to say that it was a group. Any other info? You can also detect length, which one reason why it would be good to detect length, it's a good way to help quality control your data. such as bicycles. We've seen that a lot of bicycles are around 3 meters. So if all of a sudden you're looking at some of your data and you see something that's 12 meters or 1 meter, yet it classified as a bike, it kind of gives us a flag. So that's a good method that someone can have. If you're evaluating data, length is a good way of trying to get a QC over if that data was valid or not. So that's another feature that our continuous counters do.
Typically, a bike is 2 meters long, 6 foot. Where did you get 3 meters?
Okay.
That's a very long recumbent.
I'm not going to argue with that with you, Mr. Tolberg. You know better than me for sure. I'm going to say it was 2. I misspoke. You know better than me for sure.
Okay, the Miami Beach, you gave us the location on Chrome Path. I think it's at mile marker 16.3, just north of 100th Street.
Yes.
And you explain why the overhead detector is better than the horizontal one. So thank you for the information. And I volunteered to do a count next to my house.
I have
Excellent.
a question.
Excellent. Yes.
I went to the website that you mentioned here, and if I click on one of the counts, it doesn't give me the count number, and it doesn't give me whether it was installed on the sidewalk or the pavement in case you have a bike lane. How do we know that?
I'm sorry. So you're on the map right now?
Yeah, I'm at the traffic monitoring program website.
Okay.
And
where on the web page?
I can see the blue dots.
Okay.
And green and red dots, but
yes.
If I click on either one, it doesn't have count.
Yes, so this is strictly a map meant to show research, but we don't have any counts yet. Our counts have not been validated yet. We have not published any counts yet. So when our counts are validated and published, they will end up on a map very similar to this, where you will be able to click and get the data. Right now, the data is not available.
And you're going to be specifying whether it was taken on the sidewalk or on a path or on a bike lane or whatever the case is?
Yes, yes. The metadata behind each one of these count stations, you're going to know exactly what facility it was, and it gets down to the detail of, were you on the north side sidewalk, the north side bike lane, the north side travel lane, the south side travel lane, the south side bike lane, south side sidewalk, the south side trail. Each one of those could have an individual counter on it, and that's the level of detail that we have to get to. So the user of the data, the person that's going to be using that data, will have that data available to them, so they know this was a camera count, this was an infrared count, this was a 2 count. It should give you a better understanding on the level of accuracy of the data that you're viewing. That will be available when you access our data.
Okay, great, thank you.
How would a advocacy organization who's advocating for a trail be able to get a loaner counter?
So we have not only partnered with government agencies, we have partnered with organizations in the past, and our TDA office is open to doing that still. So on that web page where you see that MOA template, you can insert an advocacy organization name in that blank, and it doesn't have to be a city, MPO, or a county agency. We are open to partnering with organizations as well.
Great, that's great to hear. All right, are there any other questions, comments from the board?
Yes, I just like to know, do you really need to have a channelized place where the count station is, where it's not really feasible to go around the sensor. In other words, like at a bridge or somewhere there's a post on both sides to keep people
Yes.
from avoiding it.
Those channel points are really what we look for. That's very important. So sometimes it's not possible, and sometimes those channel points that we want don't exist. So one of the alternatives that we've tried and what we're going to be trying more this year is we're going to be doing some smart camera counts at some of these complex locations. The hard part about cameras is that they're very expensive. So it's hard to say that we're going to be doing camera counts all the time. So we want to know, where can we count with the existing equipment that we have now? Where do we need to count with cameras, because there's really no other options? And from there, there is a possibility to count those hard locations that don't have channel points, and the camera counts is the best option.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate your report. It's very informative. And on that, I think we're ready to go to the next presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And this is Department of Transportation and Public Works update. Ms. Yana Fernandez.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Yana Fernandez, and I'm representing the Department of Transportation and Public Works. Today, I have a couple of projects that you haven't seen the plans before. So for a couple of them, so you might have a couple of comments for this presentation. Next slide. The first one is West Dixie Highway from 164th Street to 173rd Street. In here, you have on-road bike lanes proposed for this section, and wide sidewalks where feasible. This is actually a road reconstruction project. For some reason, I guess the scope copied from another project, and right now it's in master plan design stage. Next. The next project, this is a milling and resurfacing project. It is located along Southwest 141st Street from 152nd Avenue to 145th Place. And in here, this road has existing bike lanes, but it needed to have some modifications for some old traffic circles done by painting. So the entire stretch was milled and resurfaced, and buffer bike lanes were provided for this. It's currently under construction and is supposed to be completed this year. Next. I'm just including a small section of the project. If you are interested in looking at the entire set of plans, let me know, and I'll submit it to either Kevin or directly to your email. The other project is Northwest South River Drive from 38th Avenue to 32nd Avenue. In here, you're going to have a shared use path. On the left side of the typical section, you can see the shared use path. And basically, it's a road widening project that includes signalization, drainage, lighting, and it even has a widening of an existing bridge. It's currently under design, and construction is expected to be completed in 2024. Next project. Next slide. The other one is Northwest 82nd Avenue from 7th Street to 12th Street. This is just a connection. As you know, the road ends. It doesn't go under 836, so the point is to connect it from one side to the other. You're going to have sidewalks curb and gutter drainage system, signalization, sign and pavement marking, and it's currently under construction. If you could just go one more slide, I have the typical section there. This is basically how it's going to look like. They have done a very wide lane. If you look at the first typical section, a very wide lane with parking in order, I'm guessing, to analyze for future needs and be able to convert back that pavement into 2 lanes. Because as you can see there, you have a very wide lane with parking, and then it says parking lane or future lane.
Yeah. I definitely have a concern with this one. Do you actually anticipate a lot of parking going under or being under the 836? Or is this just a placeholder? If anything, let's do the placeholder as a bike lane. And, you know, when you reconstruct or then when you come back to reconstruct the road later, you know, look at adding, you know, widening the extra lane.
I definitely agree with that, and I submitted those comments already to the Highway Division. Definitely, I'm going to.
Because this is the least safe option.
I'll submit it to them. I haven't gotten a response back to them, but I am assuming that they consider there is parking right now on that area, not underneath 836, but on the south side you have some communities there, and apparently they park on this well right now. So most likely the idea was to maintain that parking. However, still my recommendation to them is to modify that to bike lanes until, you know, all the information is obtained in the future and the decision is made whether to change it to a lane or remove the bike lane or whatever the case is.
Right. And well, and I'd go a little further and just say that this connects to the Kitty Rodale Trail on the north side. And this would provide those neighborhoods that you were talking about access to the trail, which goes alongside the entirety of 836 all the way, I believe, right now to 107th Avenue. So it provides a great deal of connectivity throughout the area, and having a safe bike facility is a lot more ideal than leaving room for parking or trying to squeeze them into a Sharrow in a 14-foot lane. That's just asking for trouble. So please, from a safety perspective and a connectivity perspective, please encourage a better facility.
Eric Tolberg had the same comment. Thank you.
Noted. You can move to the next slide. The next project is Northwest 25th Street from 117th Avenue to 87th Avenue. In here, there is an existing path on the north side. The road is on the south side of the canal, and then on the north side of the canal, there is an existing shared use path. Sidewalks are being proposed, actually are existing on the south side of 25th Street, but there's nothing on the north side. And the purpose of the project is basically for vehicle travel, to widen the road. I provided in here some comments with respect to the connectivity underneath the turnpike. But basically, I didn't see much of an issue there since you have a shared use path.
This is Eric Tolberg. I had a comment that sometimes you need a pedestrian facility on both sides of the road so people don't have to cross.
The thing is that, Eric, you don't have there's nothing adjacent to the canal. there's nothing. Why would people go there?
Okay, I didn't realize that it was completely sealed off.
There's just the road, the canal, and then the path is on the other side.
Okay, fine. That's moot.
Next slide. The other one is also a roadway connection project, Northwest 7th Street end, and then the purpose is to connect it to the other side. This is under construction. It's expected to be completed next year. If you move one more slide, you can see the typical section on the other side, on the other one, on the next one. Okay, basically in here, what you're gonna have is a wide sidewalk for some sections, with shoulders along the sections that you have sufficient right of way, and a 3-lane roadway for the rest of the roadway where you don't have sufficient. It's not that you don't have sufficient right of way. The section on the top, what happens is that even though you see a very wide swell there is a pump station that is adjacent to the curb and gutter. It's a huge pump station. And that was the reason why no widening could happen on that area. Go to the next slide.
I'm sorry, would the shoulder be marked? It wouldn't be marked a bike lane?
You're talking about the south section, correct?
It's the section on the bottom of the page.
On the bottom, yeah. Yes, that was my comment to Highway Division, because they just have it marked off the shoulder, and it should be an easy fix for them.
Okay, great.
Next slide. That's it. Basically, this is an updated list of the projects. If you have any specific question or need a set of plans of either one of them, let me know and I'll send it your way. And that's it. That concludes my presentation.
Just if you could follow up, I believe we had a very robust conversation, a couple of meetings about 97th Avenue in that section that was to be widened. We were asking for for a safer facility. If you have any updated information, you can send it to us, or if you don't have it available now, that would be fine.
Is that for where we're doing the on-road bike lane?
I think there were concerns with the on-road bike lane, if I'm remembering correctly, with the safety of the bike facility. I think the question was to put it off-road, and there was a lot of back and forth.
Because you have on 97th Avenue, you have a section that has off-road path, and you have on-road bike lane with a buffer. So that's
there is a buffer now. Can you share that just so you can see where that ended up going? I don't think we ever got a follow up with what was going to be built. So.
Okay.
Eric Tilburg, we asked for a 10-foot path on each side, and you said there was only room for a 10-foot sidewalk, and we said, fine, give us a 10-foot sidewalk. And the thing is, it's safer to put the bicycles with the pedestrians than to have them out in the road.
Yeah, I guess just share what you have with us.
The issue with that is that you're supposed to have a clearance from the highway when it's part of the sidewalk, and okay. there is no, I mean, in order for you to put 10 foot on each side and have a 5-foot space between the path and the edge of the curb, you need an expensive right of way.
Okay, just share with what the plans for that. That would be appreciated.
Okay, we'll do.
All right, thank you.
Uh,
Go on, Eric.
Yes, I found that they were putting the signs for the COVID-19 cleaning, or sorry, COVID-19 testing in the middle of the Southwest 211th Street bike lanes. I was told that the project isn't finished yet, and my question is sort of, when is it going to be finished? Because it appears to be complete. Possibly there's some signage or something left.
Yeah, they're just missing to install the RPM. That's the only thing that the project is missing. And with respect to the signs, I don't know if you saw the email that I sent you from 311. Apparently, they had with the supervisor in charge of the COVID-19 operations over there said that it was not placed on the bike lane, and my inspector went there and took pictures, and we sent it again because it is placed on the bike lane. So we are in coordination with them for them to remove it, to get it out of there.
Yes, it's a problem because with the protected bike lanes, they put the sign and there's just room to squeeze your bike by the sign, whereas they could put the sign where there's no curb and wouldn't block the bike lane completely.
I agree. They have to get it out of there.
Okay. Any other questions for Yannick? All right, thank you very much. Next up, I believe, is the DOT. Yes, FTOT. Tiffany.
Yes, hello everyone. We have changed the presentation slightly, but again, this is something that we're definitely flexible to modifications based on what is best to relay the messages and the points to you guys that it's important. So feel free, send us any comments as far as ways that you wish that we would change the way we present. But this time the difference we're taking now is that we want to show you the current network, the planned network, and what we're doing and how it aligns with that. And over the past month, not everything we're doing, but just within the reviews that we've done within the past month. All right, and with that, I'm going to have Nelson take it away.
All right, good evening, everybody. Nelson Mora. Might lose you guys. I just lost power and internet, so just bear with me in case I'm not talking. Kind of like Tiffany said, what we're trying to do is just to show, I guess, progress of how we're building a safe network, kind of in such a way. So kind of to answer some of Eric's comments and some of your questions, if you had any, regarding why and you may move forward, Ivan, to the next slide. Right, so this shows our existing network, and we're kind of labeling it only low stress facilities network. It is, once Eric saw it, obviously him knowing everything about the county regarding bicycle facilities, he questioned something that were missing. And the reason why is because we just decided here to show what we're considering to start off the safe network, right? And that includes mostly just greenways and bicycle facilities that are either buffered or complete, or just an actual bicycle facility, not a 4-foot lane in a 45 mile per hour corridor. So the kind of like the criteria for that and what we're showing there in, I guess, light green, I remember now, it's bicycle facilities on roadways that are 40 miles per hour or less, right? So there are some that are missing from this map purposely. So again, just doing a recount of what's existing, and we want to use that as our we want to use that as our basis to show how all of the projects that we're reviewing are impacting positively the network, right? And we understand that the majority of the projects that we review, they're already, as I've mentioned plenty of times, they're at a 90% stage, 100% stage. So what we, some of the criteria that we include, I guess, to deem projects that are reviewed on a monthly basis and deeming them, affecting the network itself, providing a positive impact is, or are they in the early stages, let's say scoping phase or some sort of RFP or some sort of plan project where we have, we're at the right timing to provide input where a change could actually be made versus saying, well, at a shared path here on a project that's already at 100% stage, right? So the next slide, it's the
before we get off this slide, I would like to point out that this is as of December 2018, and it doesn't have things like the Chrome path. It didn't take out the bike lanes on Chrome between 296 and 312. So that information needs to be updated with the most recent, which I've given you.
Exactly, Eric, and this is a perfect example of how you guys would contribute to this, right? This is obviously what's available out there, but similar to the previous presentation, whatever input you guys give us, it's more relevant, right? You're out there and you know the most current conditions. So definitely it'll be an iterative process, and we'll be reaching out to you on a monthly basis for this, as well as for another study that we just recently started that we're going to talk about toward the end of the presentation. So, but yeah, definitely there may be some information missing here. We may have to tinker with the criteria that I guess gets us to this map, like which facilities should actually be shown here as, off the bat, low stress facilities, and how are we contributing toward them. So, but yeah, excellent point. Again, these are the funded, or the ones that we know for certain will happen or will contribute to the base network that we're calling. Again, Eric had some input on this, and we'll review it, tinker with it, and eventually come up with our base map, call it, right, our base network, right? So that's just kind of like showing, like, color-coded what's existing, what's coming, and doing, sort of a linear count of how much mileage we're adding to the network, kind of thing. Next slide. And this is, again, you see it's faded, it's shown in the background as faded as to, like, from a visual, I guess, perspective, how do all these things that we're reviewing are relating to the base network? And again, they're relating here geographically, but really not all, if any, will actually make an impact, because the majority of the projects, like I mentioned, that we reviewed, as you can see, they're categorized. They're not necessarily bike ped projects, or not necessarily adding a bike ped facility. They're just either, a lighting project. It could be a safety, but not necessarily adding a link, but just maybe looking at an intersection, and then those things, sometimes are not necessarily easy to reflect on that. But from this particular map, or from this particular review set or month, we deemed that one of them would be in addition to the network, and that's actually project 9 you see down there. And I want to move on to the following, I guess, slide, where we're kind of, before we used to present the table. Next slide, please. And then again, this table is a little bit more robust, but it adds some more information that we think is useful. If you guys, again, if you have any feedback on it and what information you feel like should be displayed here, feel free to comment on it. But it's again, just some information on the projects that we're reviewing, the phase that they're at. Be on the lookout for, like I said, scoping reports, RFPs, things like that we could actually, comment at this period and actually have those comments implemented, versus, well, we're too late in the game, or it's not part of the scope, or things like that. We're a little tired of getting those comments and not being able to do anything about them. So, trying to catch them in the early stages. And so again, this is the new table, I guess, call it that, with the information. It's sort of like what's existing, and what's being proposed, the actual proposed improvement, and then we're kind of highlighting which of the projects, if any, could be considered as being a positive impact to the network. And again, it's just a long table because I think it was like 20 projects moving. And again, the purpose of this is just to relate it to whatever I'll touch on the very last slide. It's just to compile as much information of the improvements as possible. And again, if you know of any improvements that weren't reflected here or something that relates to the project that it's either on that road where that already exists or be part of it by any means, you know, feel free to comment on or provide the information. But this, what we're trying to do is just to develop that base bank, whether it's a map or a bank of information that it's going to help us perform the connectivity assessment that we're doing to actually come up with this network that will yield a bank of projects and sort of this repository that, you know, all agencies, not just necessarily FDOT, could, every time there's a project coming, we would look at that and sort of like say, okay, what's actually planned for this quarter and what is what should be done versus, okay, this is what we're doing, nobody's looked at, and then, you know, before I continue to talk about this, let's just move on to that one slide so I can talk about the effort itself. Again, just this, the table, following slide is just the end of the table. Just again, as you can see on the very right-hand side, there's not a lot of information because the majority of the projects, like I said, they're not bike ped projects, right? So while and then some of the comments are great, like from Eric, the ones that I received, okay, so and so, we received it before. There's something happening on this quarter, you know, that's great and all, but again, this project scope, this particular one, I don't know, for example, number 16, it didn't include those improvements, right? And that's sort of the, actually those were bad examples because those were actually scoping reports and we want to catch that at those, but 17. So again, it's just being on the lookout for the phase of the project. We're making those comments as to whether or not we can, is something being considered, can this be added, so on and so forth. Next slide. Following slide. Right, so I guess this slide is not necessarily about this effort in particular, but what we want to do is just present all of the upcoming efforts from FDOT from a bike ped perspective, right? You know, in this particular, this is a very bike ped focus study that we just started, but pretty much we'll try to now, obviously, it's for Tiffany and us to coordinate a bit more on what we want to present here, but it's just to give you guys some like a heads up, hey, you know, if that's about to embark on this effort, bike ped specific effort, and here's what it is about. So this particular one is the connectivity assessment that we're calling it, that we're performing for the entire county, I guess, starting on state roads, mostly because if you guys are familiar with the implementation tool that Tiffany's group has developed and has been presented to you guys, that'll be a huge tool that will be used as part of this analysis / assessment. And essentially what we want to get out of this is, like I mentioned, a base network of the existing that will be tinkered and played around with and eventually agreed to. That is the low stress network, right? And then performing an assessment on that network and then seeing what could actually be, and yielding a bank of projects, right? Through several, I guess, types of analysis. We're calling in gap analysis, coverage analysis, level of stress analysis, eventually all of those yielding issues and opportunities. And then what we want to get out of that is actually make it functional, right? We don't, I know every planning study always starts like that. We don't just want it to be a planning study with a bunch of lines on a map, and it ends up being that. Ideally, right now we have this goal of having an action plan that could eventually be web-based. If not, at the end of this, eventually it could transition into that, but have an action plan with defined steps on actually how to implement these projects, not just having them be a vision, you know, not just end up with a pretty typical section, but what do we actually do to make this typical section, to construct it, to actually put it out there, right? Which is ultimately what we want to do. So again, that's the goal of the plan. Come up with a bank of projects, prioritize them in a way that's it may at times look like every other study that's been done before, but what we're trying to do based on our experience is just go beyond that and try to actually coordinate with the right folks. Yannick here, for example, has been an excellent resource, and she will be one too. Similar to Eric, you know, just have the right folks provide the right information and or the right context or how to actually move forward so that this actually happens, right? And an example of that would be, well, we have a state road or we have a corridor that's been looked at for several purposes, right? An example of having trade-offs is, okay, we realize that there's a link on the map that it's needed, but in this particular corridor it can happen. It's a DOT road, but there's something else envisioned for that, maybe a transit corridor, right? And there's not enough right of way, there's not enough just physical space to provide this. Well, what's an alternate link? Well, maybe this particular link belongs to the county. Maybe the county has plans for that, but they, through this kind of iterative process, arrive at this network that everybody agrees to, and just putting it down as part of his action plan, and just having it, I guess, commit to it and use it as a way to actually move it forward.
Can I? I'm just going to broaden on this a little bit, if it's okay with you.
Please.
So what we're seeing right now is that we have a lot of what they call RRR projects, which are resurfacing projects, and those have limited funding, and it's based on what the state allocates, and it comes, I think it's trickled down even from like a federal level. So what that does is it sort of encourages, that limited funding really encourages us to be putting down the very same thing every single time. So what we want to do, instead of asking these big asks on every single RRR project, I want to have a targeted approach so that we can really get a big bang for our buck. So when I see a RRR project and it happens to be a part of our network because we've formed this puzzle of connectivity, and I see that it's a key and integral part because we've had this plan, I see it's an integral part. When it goes to scoping, or before it goes to scoping committee, which is a part of the DOT process, I can already be ready with this action plan in hand, saying that it is a priority. We need to have another funding source to create another sequence so that when this project goes through construction, goes through design, it will also have all these other added features, and we will use another funding source to make that possible. But that's something that cannot be done with every single project at that level. But if I have key projects that I know are important, then that's where we're going to have success. So the real, what we really need to come down to is what is going to help us connect our safe facilities, and we need to know what are our safe facilities. So by Eric giving us that feedback, that's vital, and everyone else provide your feedback. Look at that map, see if there's something that we're leaving out, or also look at what we are considering safe now, and if one of those isn't safe by your standards, let us know so we can evaluate it. Part of this too is going and evaluating. So if somebody tells me something's not safe on our current network, I can partner with our traffic operations department, our safety specialists, so that they can try to mitigate those issues. Because the key here is we need safe connectivity. That's where we're gonna have success in mode shift, and that's where we're gonna get success in Vision Zero. At least that's what I'm seeing, and feel free share if you believe differently, but yeah, this is the direction this is going.
This is Eric Toberg. Yes, I've volunteered to help in whatever way I can, because I know a lot about the South Dade Pass and bike lanes, etc. So if you could give me, if anybody needs information, I'd be happy to provide it. The thing I suggest is that we need a 2021 bike facilities map. We should need to get all the projects that are under construction right now and put all those onto a map. And so we see, okay, where do we need to connect? Because the map that we had is actually from 2 years ago.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, Eric. And that's what I pretty much where that error, that will be the end of that error between discovery and network. Like I said, we're not going to start the analysis until we have defined that network, and that network actually includes whatever, or should include whatever is being constructed now. Because again, it doesn't make any sense to look at something that we're recommending whatever is being built already. may recommend. So I think our very next action item, it's just to produce, obviously this map doesn't have enough detail. It's to produce something that we can distribute to you guys and to give us feedback similar to what Eric gave us, or just like any general feedback on the map, and then eventually just all agree to that and then move forward. One question that I do have actually for you, Eric, thank you very much for volunteering. We kind of already volunteered you based on your very, very good information that you give us every time. So you give us this maps every time, and there seem to be a PDF, but there seems to be a GIS layer behind that. And if you happen to have that GIS files or just those GIS files or something that's not necessarily, that is more, I guess, interactive than a PDF, we would very much welcome that that information.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm much more low tech than that. What I've done is I've taken the county bike map from December 2018, and then I've added in the things that I know that we have, and in some cases taken off things that I know are not there, and made up smaller maps. And so I have no GIS information. It's all based on riding the lanes and paths and saying, okay, from this street to this street, there's a path, and then it ends here, and then there's so many feet to the next intersection.
Yeah, that's probably as good as it gets then. So because it's the most relevant or reliable. But my because it does seem, I mean, again, I haven't detailed your maps. We will do that. That'll be the next step. But it seems to show everything in the same, I guess, sort of legend. So there's no difference between proposed and existing. So if there's a way for you to, I guess, for example, the Chrome path, it's shown all the way down, and we know there's still portions. Like I said, that could be, it's going to be constructed, things like that. So what you're showing in your maps, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's what you know will be constructed by the end of 21, right?
No. The maps that I've sent you are things that are actually complete, that are actually on the ground and open. So, for example, the section from 136th Street to 232 Street, that was open recently, but the map was never updated. And so, as I said, the maps are way old, and they need to be updated to put in the more recent information.
Nelson, the maps that Eric is using come from the TPO. We have the layers and so forth. And as Eric has mentioned, we're in the process of slowly updating the map. It was last done back in 2019, but I can provide you those shape files offline.
Certainly. So
great. Are there more comments from the members? All right. Anything else, Nelson?
No, like I said, we'll use this platform as kind of like to update you guys. Part of that study does include workshops and just outreach, and then that we'll probably look into doing toward the end of the analysis. So what we'll do is we'll use this platform if Tiffany says otherwise, unless Tiffany says otherwise, to kind of like get your feedback through here, in a more efficient manner, and then eventually coming up with that network. So we'll be distributing the existing network once we take over those maps and once we refine it for you guys' feedback. So that will be the next step for that.
Okay, great.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, this is Eric. We need to get both an existing map for people to use, and we need to have the funded, existing plus funded with dotted lines. I think we should try to get that by the end of the year.
Yeah, we're looking more by the end of the next month, but yeah.
All right, Kevin, next item.
All righty. Let's go to the next slide, please.
Information.
Information. There are five items I want to bring up. There are four which you have on there, and there's a fifth one which came up today. The for your information in your packets which you saw electronically, there are 2 resolutions that the BPAC approved so far this year. BPAC, you go to the next slide. I think they're on there. They're on there. Okay. So there were 2 resolutions, number 1 and 2. One regarding was like the east-west corridor, and then I forgot what the other one was, but those were ones you did at the last meeting, which we just did. So number 1, east-west, as I mentioned, and then number 2 was the City of Miami I-395 under deck. So that's for your records. After that, next slide, please. The BPAC attendance report that was also in your package so far. This is only our 3rd meeting of the year because we have missed a couple meetings because of an earthquake and COVID. So far, everybody is in good in attendance. Next slide. All right. So speaking of COVID, one of the things with that is that people are exercising more or walking or riding up more whenever they can in various forms. And as one of the results of that is that the counter that the TPO has, I know Eric was talking about counters earlier, that is by the Biscay station, the numbers in that have reached record highs. It was 15,900 and change in March, and then for April it was over 19,000. Both of those are the first times it ever gone that high. So we'll see what it'll look like in May when they keep track of those numbers. Next slide. Should be the next meeting date, all right? So I'm going to hold off on that. So today, one of the things that came up from that I was told about was that for each of the TPO's advisory committees, they're required to have, as you know, when you first started, you had to take an ethics course prior to starting on this committee, and for anybody who has taken the course 5 years or longer than that, they need to do a refresher course, and there's going to be a refresher training and being done June 5th at 10 a.m. It's an hour and a half. It'll be online, obviously. Once I get more information on that, the details, the web links, and so forth, I'll send that to you. In regards to our current members, there's only one that I have on record over the last couple of years, which is Francisco. He did his ethics training November 18. So that would mean that everybody prior to that, which would be everybody else, would have to, if they have not already done an ethics training within the last 4 years, and have to get one redone soon. And let's see if there's anything else there. Other than that, the next meeting date will be June 23rd. Maybe online, maybe in person. We'll find out as it comes. And as you know, the BPAC always takes July off, so there will be no meeting in July unless you choose to do otherwise. And that's it, Colin.
All right, thank you all very much. Is there anything from Brett, you have something?
Yes, just a couple questions on the reports. Thank you, Mr. Walford. I guess I'll start with the last one that you provided. So you're saying June 5th at 10 a.m., all BPAC members, except for the one name that you provided, need to participate in an hour-and-a-half long ethics class. Is that correct?
Yes, whenever one joins ethics committees, part of the process is you're supposed to do an ethics training within like 3 or 4 months after they've joined. And based on the records on this one, 2 of the newer members that we have haven't done theirs yet. Edgar hasn't, and Charles hasn't. And then the members who are on here were all here before I got here, and they don't your names aren't showing up as within recent ethics trainings.
Within
So-
5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
And that, I'm sorry, that answer kind of confused me even more. So let me just ask for me personally. Do
Mhm.
I need to, are you suggesting that I am due to take the class on June the 5th at 10 a.m.?
No, well, that's when the class is being held. Now, if depending on the volume and so forth, they might have to schedule another class and so forth. We'll see, because it's not just for the BPAC, it's for all advisory, it's for all various members of committees, advisory members, and so forth. So it's not just a BPAC only. So
Right,
it
but
turns out.
according to your records, am
Mhm.
I due for a training session?
I would say yes, because I have nothing with your name on it prior to 2016.
Okay, so let's focus on that for a second then. My recollection was that in the past, the ethics representative would attend a previously scheduled regular BPAC meeting to present ethics,
Okay.
and that counted. I was never asked to, nor have I ever attended a separate ethics thing for BPAC in the, how long have I been a board member now? 21 years, something like that? 20 years?
Yes.
So can we just have them come to us like we did in the past and have an agenda item and give them a few minutes then?
Okay, that is something I can look into. I'm not saying no or yes, but like I mentioned, this information came to me this afternoon, so I'm just forwarding it to you now. If it's indeed something that's been done in the past, that it was like an agenda item, or we can see if that can be done again, or if that we can see if that'd be interested in, or if it's possible to do that. I'll let you all know, and I'll work with you.
When I did it, it was about an hour-long course that you were required to take, and so that
So
was.
Colin, you took an hour-long course for BPAC.
Yes.
Okay. And Kevin, you're going to email the details of this June 5th opportunity?
Yes, once I get the web links and so forth for the I will provide that to all of you.
Okay.
Great.
Next item is on the attendance, and I don't have that sheet in front of me that has the rule. Based on the fact that we lost several meetings in 2020 due to the reasons that you explained, doesn't that kind of impact the rules on attendance?
No,
yes.
because that's only. Isn't that only? Sorry.
No, go ahead, Colin.
I think that's only unexcused absences. Isn't that correct? The rule for attendance.
Yeah, well, if you have an attendance issue, in other words, you have your excused absences and your absences are not excused. When everything is said and done, you need to be present for at least 50% of the meetings, and so whether the absences be excused or unexcused. So if you're not, as long as you're over 50%, then that there is no issue there.
Your document says 75%.
Okay, so for starters, let's get clear on what the rule is. Kevin, can you please open the actual rule?
All right, hold on. Let me get my bylaws.
Thank you.
Bear with me for a second.
And while you pull it open, that's my concern, and that's my understanding is if it's, regardless if it's excused or unexcused, and it's a percentage or it's a number of meetings per year or it's a percentage, the fact that there were several meetings that we all missed impacts the rule. So now essentially, as the way I understand it, to be consistent with the rule, we have to almost have 100% attendance, regardless if it's excused or not, for the rest of the year, or we're going to be in violation.
All right, so bear with me because I have to read here. Give me a second. Let me get a magnifying glass.
Okay, it shouldn't make a difference because if it's 75%, it's 75% of 7 meetings as opposed to 75% of 11 meetings.
And if that's the ruling of our administration, then then that's the ruling, and that means that the reduction in meetings did impact the rule. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me just read it quickly. Okay, as per TPO Governing Board Resolution 113, a member shall be automatically removed if in a given calendar year he or she is absent from 2 consecutive meetings without an acceptable excuse, or he or she is absent from 3 of the committee's meetings without an acceptable excuse. A member shall be deemed absent from a meeting when he or she is not present at the meeting at least 75% of the time. An acceptable excuse is defined as an absence for medical reasons, business reasons, personal reasons, or any other reason which the TPO Governing Board by a 2/3 vote of the membership deems appropriate. An excused absence shall be granted to members by notifying the BPAC coordinator, meaning myself, and failure to do so will result in an unexcused absence being recorded. Member attendance shall be reviewed annually after the calendar year. Additionally, a committee member shall be automatically removed if he or she is absent, excused or unexcused, for 50% of the total number of meetings held within a fiscal year. The fiscal year for the BPAC is considered the calendar year. So if you, and we have, let's see, for 2020, we have February 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there will be 9 meetings this year, provided there's no other issues. So if you were here for 5 meetings, then you're here for 55% of the meetings. If you're here for four meetings or less, then you're here for 44%, and then you'd have an attendance issue. And then the 75% that Eric mentioned before, that is actually the percentage of time that you're spent in the meeting. Because I keep track of when people come in a meeting and when people leave the meeting. So so just because you're here, but if you came in and then left 10 minutes later and the meeting lasted 2 hours, well, you were not here for 75% of the meeting. So that's where that percentage comes from. But that's rarely ever used. But it's there.
Because in a best case scenario, the number of meetings has decreased, and this fiscal year, the number of potential meetings is now 9, that reduces the minimum attendance requirement, regardless if you're excused or unexcused. You must attend at least 5 meetings this fiscal year to stay on the board, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Next question.
And this is the 3rd meeting, this is the 3rd meeting. So most people are basically 2 meetings away from being set.
And am I in that category? I think I was 3 for 3 so far.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You have not been absent yet.
Okay. Last item, kind of a new business thing real quick, since I have the experts in the meeting. Can someone give me a perspective on the concept of reverse, well, let me backtrack, angle parking, where you are to pull out, you have to back up into the street.
Mm-hmm.
I remember some studies and different people felt different ways about it. Where are all the agencies today on that concept? I guess I'll ask Public Works is on the phone and DOT is on the phone. And for that matter, Colin from the city. So Colin, I guess I'll start with you. What is the city's perspective on that concept?
They don't do it too frequently. It's not a preferred option from a safety standpoint. But they might do it at certain locations like a park or places of low volume. But it's really
and DOT next, I guess. What is DOT's feelings on that concept lately?
Our roadways typically have a higher carrying capacity, and we typically have a higher speed on our roadways, which wouldn't work well with that type of configuration. when you're backing up on something like that, when you have that angled parking and you have someone right next to you,
That's it.
you're backing up into a street, you have a big blind spot. You're not able to see the cars coming. If they're coming at a high speed, it's not a good situation. So that's something that is, I'm not gonna say it's never done because I haven't evaluated it, but I don't know of any of our state roadway systems that have that type of configuration.
DOT, I'm sorry, Public Works, same general concept, same idea? That's all right. We might have lost Public Works. So part two then.
She's not here.
Okay. The meeting has run a little long. That's understandable and excusable for sure. So I guess the last question I have then is Miracle Mile, the new lovely Miracle Mile. Part of the design is that they do not have curb and gutter separating the parallel parking from the bike ped pathway. There's no curb and gutter. So I guess that is acceptable. I guess I'll start with the city's perspective on that part or that design. Let's just focus on the Miracle Mile design.
Miracle Mile is Coral Gables.
Right. They would have had to get approval from the county Public Works for that design. So they must have found it to be an acceptable design.
And from the city's perspective, you're right, Miracle Mile is not in the city, but I mean, do you see any objections or problems with that design in how it does not have curb and gutter and all that?
No. I mean, we're designing roads without curb and gutter as well in different places. In Wynwood, they're doing something like that. It's not angled parking. There is occasionally parallel parking though.
True. Yeah, I just
and typically they would use kind of
something to get connected. I'm brainstorming, but it's different. You're right. So how about DOT? What do you think about no curb and gutter if there are advantages? Are there, is there any?
Yeah, so this is about more, okay, my hometown, I'm from Indiana, they did a similar design in their downtown because they were trying to make it completely ADA friendly, where someone would be able to conveniently get to their car or conveniently cross the street where the speeds are very low. So you don't necessarily have to cross at designated crosswalks. You could just cross the street to get from one shop to the next. So it's nice when speeds are very low and it makes it very ADA friendly, but it has to be accompanied by very low speeds.
And by low speeds, can we say 30 miles an hour is sufficiently low?
I'm going to leave that to the the
25?
county.
What, Colin, what's the magic number?
I would say 25 or below but that's just me stating it in my opinion. That's not, I would say 25 or below.
So do we assume that Miracle Mile is 25?
I don't know what it is.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know that the roadway speeds are fairly low.
Right, and I see Francisco nodding, so it would make sense that it was 25. Okay, I appreciate your all's time and guidance as always. And if we're getting near adjournment, Mr. Chair, I wish everyone well, stay safe, take care, go ahead.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So
someone. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, take care, everyone.
All right, meeting adjourned 8:10. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.